Champion players, champion club. Melbourne wins another one.
Yes, it is! Reece Terry brings up her 200 in style.
Oh, Sam Kerr! And boy, did she hit it sweet!
Redemption for Golden State. One of the great playoff runs of all time is complete. The Warriors are NBA champions again.
For all your sports news, reviews, and interviews, you listen to the Sports Desk here on SYN. On the Sports Desk here in SYN 90.7, it was France who won the World Cup overnight, and Brisbane as well won. It's just ironic that they both share the same theme song. Anyway, you are listening to the first episode of Season 3. I'm Ben Pascuzzi. I'm joined by Liam O'Grady, Andrew Kelso.
Yes.
Yep.
I love how you paused after my name.
Andrew Because you put Andre.
Is it Andrew, is it?
Because you put Andre.
Oh, no, you sound French, but you're not French.
You mispronounced my name, and I'm the one who gets criticised for it.
No, because you put Andre
it's Andre on Facebook, yeah.
And then I pictured that in my head anyway.
But we've also known each other for about 13 weeks, so I would like to think in that time you got my name right. But we can only dream.
I've never called you by your surname, though.
Yes, Andre.
No. Well, my surname's not different. Move on.
Anyway, we've got a new addition for the Sports Desk this season. We've got Richard, who's joining us on the Monday show. How are we?
Good to be here. Thanks for letting me talk some trash on air.
No, you're going to learn pretty quickly there. Welcome to the Sports Desk. This is where we do a complete wrap-up of everything that has happened over the weekend of sport, and it has been an enormous weekend in the sporting world.
What happened, Andrew? Did you watch it?
The World Cup.
Yeah, did you?
Yes, I did.
Oh, did you? That's good.
Well, in case you didn't watch it, Andrew, we're going to play a little bit of a highlights package of what actually took place last night. Oh, it's not. Oh, it's on mute.
Flicked in by Griezmann and flicked on! And France take the lead in the World Cup final!
The 12th own goal of the 2018 World Cup has France jumping up and down. Mandzukic can compete with Pogba. Came down to Vida. And then Perisic, 1-1! Croatia are never behind for long. Ivan Perisic again. In by Griezmann, and repelled at the near post by Perisic. The French are screaming handball. And the referee is choosing to look himself. He's given a penalty. A penalty for France in the World Cup final as a result of VAR. Antoine Griezmann. France have their lead back. An historic goal. A goal of its age, of its generation. But a penalty is a penalty in any year. And Antoine Griezmann specialises. Mbappe. Griezmann. Pogba. Pogba! For France, and possibly now the world! Running it for Selko. Here's Mbappe! Oh my word! Teenage kicks! The ultimate teenage kick! The boy with the world at his feet! Kylian Mbappe! There ain't no stopping him now! The first teenage World Cup final goal since Pelé himself. Oh, Lloris was caught on it by Mandzukic. And Croatia have a little sniff. It is France. Allez les Bleus. Oh, territories meet. The Deschamps double is complete. In 1998, he lifted it. 20 years on, he will see it lifted for him. The final score at the Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow. France 4, Croatia 2.
Yeah, so it was France who were able to get the chocolates there, winning the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia.
That's awesome.
4-2.
Got the World Cup trophy and chocolates.
And chocolates as well.
Wow.
Have you heard that I've never heard that expression before the sports desk either. But yes, it was a pretty remarkable match. To get 6 goals in a World Cup final is fairly uncommon.
And it's amazing what can happen after 10 minutes of football, Andrew, isn't it? The reference
when it
there
comes
is
to Wimbledon-
Andrew went to sleep after 10 minutes because he wanted to prepare
I
for
know,
today's
who
show.
thought that a
fair enough.
France-Croatia
But
match,
all us
soccer
three-
match didn't interest me. Amazing.
All us three in preparation for the show, we watched it.
It was a terrible time. I can't believe FIFA was so inconsiderate to
Oh,
us as
yeah,
Australians
no,
by
seriously.
playing the World Cup at 1 a.m.
Morning.
No, it was a great final, though. You mentioned the 6 goals compared to the last 2 World Cups that were settled with an extra time winner,
Yeah.
1-0. I mean, this is a far more exciting prospect, and I'm pretty glad we got it.
And what a way to start as well. An own goal and a penalty in the first half.
Well, speaking of the penalty,
Yes.
I think what are our thoughts on that? Firstly, the penalty itself and the VAR and the process of that, and secondly, how we like the VAR this tournament. Was it brought too early, or is it right that we've got the technology available for it?
I thought the penalty was there 100%. Deliberate. I'll say it was deliberate handball, personally, but I'm not a fan of the VR. I think there's too much technology now in games. Mistakes are fine, you know. No one hates a mistake unless it's against your team.
I mean, I think this is an example where the VAR is perhaps like we're coming to its own because there have been no major mistakes. And I mean, the ultimate argument for VAR is that human umpires, are going to make just as many mistakes as technology. I mean, you look at the A-League Grand Final, which really I think was cost because of the VAR.
That was a
Compared to that,
travesty.
nothing like that happened
That was a
here.
travesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that the FIFA World Cup was run more professionally than the A-League final.
Imagine if it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that was, I'm with you, Liam. Definitely a handball for mine. The deliberate thing isn't a factor either when it's in the box, as long as the hand's in an unnatural position, which it absolutely was there from Perisic, which is very disappointing for him after he scored that rip snorter of a second goal to bring them back to 1-1, and then hero to villain mere minutes later. But yeah, that really sentenced Croatia, put them in a pretty tough spot after that one. For the VAR, I think it definitely minimised a lot of mistakes. So why not have it as part of the game? I think if you're going to get the right result, it's definitely worthwhile.
No, see, I'm all for mistakes.
I
everything can be
think
perfect.
there is a future for VAR and technology, and we need it. I wasn't too sure whether or not we should have brought it in for this World Cup per se, because I don't think it's been perfected yet. Because there were a lot of non-decisions throughout the World Cup which we saw that should have gone to VAR. I mean, there was one where Kane was pushed down several times it was one of the group matches. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, in dead ball situations, right?
Yeah, and they don't review it. So I think that's the reasoning why I don't think it should have been brought in this World Cup. It did well. I mean, every single decision that it had, it was pretty much there. There might have been a couple where it may not have been, but the fact that not every single one is gone to VAR is the reasoning why I don't think it should have been brought in.
Well, I know this might come as a shock to you, but some English commentators after England lost to Croatia complained that Croatia's first goal didn't get looked at by the VAR. Because apparently a dangerous
What was
kick.
it again?
It's-
the dangerous
the
kick. That's
dangerous
right. Yeah.
Well, I thought
Which
because
isn't
They touched the
really-
ball.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
not something they can
Got the
mark
ball
with
there.
VAR that well, though.
But I was
Well,
more
that's
shocked that
English
England
media
people
for you.
complained about it. That's what really shocked me.
They're just trying to find a reasoning why it's not coming home.
I suppose this is a reason why VAR is sort of controversial. Like the way these decisions are refereed is it is a bit of a nuanced, bit of an ambiguous situation sometimes.
Yeah.
Like a decision like that where it could be the high boot or it could be a goal. I mean, who's really to say what is the letter of the law in a situation like that? And I guess when you introduce that video technology, everyone's got so much time to look at it. It's just going to amplify this discussion even more about what was right and what was wrong.
I mean, they're never going to stop using technology. Once we've got the VAR, no time in human civilization has anyone just rejected a device that can be used to sort of help us play sport. But I think, like you say, perhaps whether it was just put in too early, because it hasn't been perfected. The other thing as well about the VAR, it's not so much about correcting mistakes, it's sometimes just about justification, so that the umpires who, in this case the referees who make a controversial call can show it for everyone. Everyone can see it, everyone's on the same page. I think particularly in the AFL that's been absolutely vital when there have been a few calls that have relied solely on the umpire. And
They go too much though to it.
The
in
protect the
AFL.
zone.
I hate
Protect
how
the zone.
we'll talk about that, but no,
Yeah, but
the
that's
goal,
not
we'll talk about AFL later. But in terms of goal umpires, relying too heavily on it, I think that's the case. But
in soccer,
yeah.
though, it's just. I mean, if there is, for instance, with the handball in last night's match, the problem was at least that way so that they can see so that everyone can see exactly where everyone was and justify the referee's decision. Not so much for the referee, but for the sake of the crowd and the spectators.
Yeah, I liked it. I think we said this off air as well, that we knew there was going to be a VR decision in these finals.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's for something that wasn't there, they're just going to use
the
it.
first
Yeah.
World Cup with it.
Yeah, they
it was
had to use
obviously
it.
in the final.
Yeah.
It was meant to be. But we'll move on from the VAR. We'll focus more on the match, and in particular France's World Cup. And they weren't faultless, but post the group stages, they were pretty much faultless. I mean, I personally didn't see them scoring this many goals against Croatia. I thought they were going to do it like they did in the semis and the quarters, and it'd just be a 1 goal or 2 goal or however it was, and they just shut up shop. But they didn't.
Well, they weren't
To their
playing
credit,
that defensive system, I think, for that
Yeah.
first half. They got lucky with those 2 sort of goals. Oh, not lucky, potentially.
Oh,
but
Griezmann, the first one,
first
he may have dived. before
absolutely
he got
wholeheartedly
contact.
dived,
Yeah.
which is
I'm glad you're there.
Yeah, absolutely wholeheartedly dived, and then got lucky with a bit of a flick on from Mandzukic for the own goal.
Yeah. Well, also Croatia, I remember listening to the commentary. They were a little bit too deep as well in terms of setting up the wall and whatnot. And that's something they did against England, which was successful. But if you're going to do that, you get any flick on, you're in danger.
Yep.
And, well, the goalkeeper just, bang, absolutely no chance.
Yeah, no
unfortunately,
chance.
I mean, because he was the hero in the semi-final.
Yeah.
So,
and
very
such a
disappointing for
gallant
him.
performer
Yeah.
at 32 years of age. He was out on his legs at the end of last night's match.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that there were talk about how high scoring France were, because this is actually the second time a team has scored 4 goals. Only the second time a team has scored 4 goals in a World Cup since 1970, when Brazil beat Italy 4-1. So
In a final?
yeah,
I talked bad about their first 2 goals, but those 2 second half goals were some.
Oh,
they were great.
fantastic.
Fantastic
Which
goals.
was better? Which was better?
I
though?
think the
Pogba
Mbappe one.
Yeah,
I
Mbappe,
think the
yeah.
Mbappe.
I kind of like Pogba's though as well, because he had to strike with the right, and then he's immediately gone the left. That's
That's the
why
type
I
of goal
think
you
we
see
got-
off when you play FIFA, that type of goal.
Yeah, but he's gone on right, and then he's gone in his left boot,
Yeah.
and he still hit it
Yeah,
with the
and
same
it was
quality.
so pristine.
Yeah,
so
that's what I
clean.
think. I still think Mbappe's was better.
There's a better passage of
he-
play.
And his tournament, I mean, fantastic for a 19-year-old. His first World Cup. We heard in the commentary before. He's the first teenager to score in a World Cup final since Pele.
So
Can he? Is
no
that
pressure.
too much of a
pretty
comparison
high
at this
bar to
stage
set.
for him?
But what else can he do in his career? I think he should just retire now. You've already won the World Cup. There's really nothing else you can do.
Win a couple of.
Earn millions of dollars,
Oh, yeah.
win the Champions League. I think he's probably on the move, potentially. I know Real are interested, and it could be a very, very high money move
Oh, yeah,
to
because
Real.
Real did lose a small name player, didn't they?
Yeah,
is it
sold someone.
Ronaldo?
I
is
think
it?
so. Yeah, someone like
It's
that.
gone to an Italian team called
Yeah.
Juventus. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know about Ronaldo. Anyway,
He won't be anything really.
you're listening to the Sports Desk here on SYN 90.7 with Liam, Andrew, Richard, and Ben. And we're now going to continue with the World Cup, and we're just going to get our thoughts on the World Cup overall. I mean, it had pretty much everything. It had England doing well for the first time in God knows how long. I think when was the last time they made a sim? Was it 1994?
Yeah.
Or 1990? Somewhere near there.
Is
anyway.
it should be good for England.
1966 there, obviously their sole World Cup final. So that obviously brought a lot of momentum into the World Cup. Then there's the fact Croatia making their first ever World Cup final, which was absolutely fantastic. And then you get a whole lot of upsets in the fact that Germany didn't get out of the knockout stages. Brazil went out early against against Belgium. Belgium were a team on the rise and unfortunately went down. But there's
Australia
so much.
didn't make it out the group stage. I know.
Oh, what a shock!
Gallant
What a shock!
effort, though.
What a shock! But
Well,
anyway,
I'm sick of the effort. We've been the last 4 World Cups. There's enough of we're proud of our boys. We've got to expect
it
something.
hurts when soccer is your 4th sport in your country, and we're a country of 20 million people.
Yeah.
To be fair, I'm pretty pleased with that effort.
I think we should have made the round of 16.
I don't know. It's funny that we have this expectation every 4 years when it rolls around.
I know.
Then in the meantime, nobody cares whatsoever.
I think, and especially with Australians, I guess, success in most sports, the majority of sports, in fact, it always gets amplified whenever we're in the World Cup, and we always, I think, go over the not expectations, but we put our expectations higher than what the team is capable of. I didn't think we were going to get through, but all the media commentary around the World Cup sort of got you thinking, hang on a second, we might be able to get through, but and then obviously all the disappointment. But I think it's just a regular occurrence. We have too high of an expectation on the side, and then of course we drop. So
that's so true, actually, because we dominate so many sports, tennis and cricket and obviously footy and things like that.
Do we dominate tennis? We haven't
dominated
dominated tennis
tennis
in a while.
We have in the past. We have in the past dominated. So the fact that this is one sport we never have dominated, I think it's a kind of stigma.
We still haven't dominated tampering yet in cricket.
No.
But
It's still a learning curve for us. The Indians,
we're practicing.
The Indians and Sri Lankans, they got that down pat.
Yeah, in all honesty, though, we should be pretty impressed we made it. I think we've forgotten pretty quickly how tumultuous the build-up was in the qualifiers. Had to beat Syria, had to beat Honduras in the two-round playoffs. So I think we're pretty impressed we made it. I thought the World Cup final was actually a good representation of the World Cup as a whole. I thought it was an outstanding World Cup filled with a stack of goals, controversial decisions, minnow teams performing above their weight. It was just a fantastic World Cup.
Is it a World Cup without Neymar diving?
No.
Can you even call it a World Cup without that?
That's like Christmas Day, the turkey being brought out. It's just it signals the start of the festivities. They should actually make it, even when Neymar retires, they're just going to get an honorary Neymar to dive at the start of every World Cup. It's sort of, actually, you mentioned before.
But now I'm hoping 2022 that England does well again, because I love their arrogance. It was beautiful.
Well, it's
they have a team for it too. They've got a lot of good young talent.
But it was good.
Who knows
France are
what
really nice as well.
They could be really strongly developed. It's interesting you say that.
I didn't know who to listen to.
We were having a serious conversation after the side. There were two conversations going on. It works fantastic for radio. It's interesting you say that about Belgium before, and speaking of England being on the rise, because they, I think, were probably the most interesting, most followed, most unexpected success of the World Cup this year. The fact that they were third, and I think that's one thing that's been ignored because the World Cup was such a always takes precedence. The fact that Belgium came third and Croatia came second, for that matter, that's pretty remarkable. The fact that Belgium and Croatia in second and third. This is actually also, interestingly, the first time that that England have lost two matches back to back since 2014. Which is bizarre when you put that in perspective. So it wasn't really that much of a success for them. Well, I mean, they got further than expected, and particularly, like you say, for a young team, they did astoundingly well. But let's not forget that they're still fourth, and they were very distant. I don't think they were really a true opponent for France.
Got a pretty good run in through the knockout stages.
They were probably the informed team throughout the knockout stages. Then obviously they ran into all those extra time matches, which obviously is going to have to catch up to them, which it did. But they were the informed team.
I think
you
were talking about England. Were you talking about England before? Yeah. Come on, Ben.
Anyway, so
I had them.
No, but he was talking about England, and then you mentioned Croatia, them going through the group stages.
That's why you don't go in
Don't worry, James Worth.
The third place playoff, though, on Saturday night.
No one cared.
Yeah, what are our thoughts about that?
Yeah,
well,
third
actually,
place.
Because I've got a bit of a long thing, so I'll go first. Thank you. I think
I'm not
no one
gonna get
cares,
a
and I
coffee.
think it hurts more for teams like Belgium, because there's only most of the clubs well known in international clubs from being Australian. Belgium, I think, were knocking on the door of becoming a well-known club. So I think out of any club, they should have them winning the World Cup final would have been much more for them than, say, Croatia or France, to that matter. So them going into the game, I think they didn't care because they're back to where they were. They're back with the Colombia, Mexico, Chile, knocking on the door, becoming a well-known World Cup nation. I think you got England, who who lost so many friends because they were arrogant people, to now not coming home, have it coming next door, and to now become fourth.
Coming next door.
I wonder if the French were singing that. It's coming next door.
Go on the French-England border and try to be like, hey,
at the
do you want to buy
It was pretty interesting, I thought, that Belgium and England played twice in this World Cup.
Yeah.
Both in two very...
and both didn't care about either game.
Yeah,
Different circumstances.
Absolute. doesn't matter the result of either one of those games.
Yeah.
The third place playoff is an absolute joke.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I think everyone, they played the World Cup to win it.
Yeah.
You don't play to
They don't even
come for third.
Do you even get medals? Like, is a
I don't know,
bronze
you get a
medal
medal.
even?
I
think
Is that
they've
why
got
they
a
do
medal,
it?
maybe, but there's no point.
But, like,
in it.
you
You play to, you're a sporting competitor. You play to win the whole thing. You don't play for third place.
Like, imagine seeing that in AFL, like the Friday before the grand final last year, having GWS play Geelong and
Yes.
MCG.
What a shambles
It's
that
such a
would have
weird
been.
situation. It's such a bizarre phenomena. Like the mindset of those players going into the third match, they must just not care, and yet they're still forced to play their best. So I don't really understand the point of it either.
Particularly going into the next World Cup where it's going to expand to 48
48,
teams.
yes.
I want to touch on that. So obviously it is for 2026. They're saying that it may come early to the 2022 World
the
Cup.
November,
obviously in
December
Qatar.
World Cup.
I'm just going to go quickly through the qualification route because we, as Australia, should easily get through now. So for Asia, it's gone to 8 places, so up from 4.5. In the CONCACAF, which is Africa, it's
Wait,
gone
4.5.
So
yeah, 4.5.
the
So
playoff
four,
place.
Yeah, so the 4 teams, and then you know how we played against Honduras.
Oh, I thought there'd be
That's
like
why
half
it's
a team in there.
No. For Africa, so 9 places, up from 5. In the North... I've said it wrong anyway. The CONCACAF, this is the North and Central America one. 6 places. And obviously the 3 hosts they go through in 2026. It's up from 3.5. The CONMEBOL, which is South America, it's gone from 6 places, up from 4.5. Oceania now has 1 place.
So congratulations to New Zealand.
Yep, congratulations to New Zealand. You are officially going
Don't rule
to
out
make
America
the World
Samoa.
Didn't we beat them
36-0.
36-0, there you go.
Archie Thompson scored 18, I believe, or something similar.
Those were the days.
I think Fiji almost actually qualified to whatever the second round is, so Fiji could be on the rise.
Fiji. And
Fiji
then
2022 champions.
Fiji
calling it
World
now.
Cup Finals 2022.
get a couple of rugby players in. And then finally, UEFA, which is obviously Europe, it's gone up from 16 places from 13.
Well,
So,
Italy might finally make it.
Yeah. I know. Well, they made it. Anyway, they're gonna split it into 16 groups of 3. Do we like this change of format?
I think more teams, with Croatia almost winning it this year, will leave, I think, more opportunity for an upset team to win, especially with 48, so more chance for bigger teams to get upset.
Yeah, so American Samoa.
American Samoa will end up winning. Like I said, it's Fiji 2022. It's happening.
With the groups of 3, it does make the group stages a little less meaningful.
Yeah.
I think you're not going to see a Germany get knocked out in the group stages like we did this World Cup, for instance.
Imagine.
Yeah, well, that would be crazy.
Well, it could be like a Germany, Spain, England group, so...
Well, the seeding would probably dictate
No,
that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
That'd be a group. That
But
wouldn't happen.
you mentioned 8 places for Asia. That seems
that's
like
huge.
surely we are a shoe in that instance. And when South America and North America get 6, that seems
bizarre.
ridiculous.
Yes, because Asia has way more World Cup champions than South America.
Yeah,
Well, it's
exactly.
probably
I think
because it's
it's- I think
Qatar.
it's,
I mean, a large factor of that's because it's Qatar. That is actually in Asia. That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah, not only
What would
that,
be-
but yeah, because I think
No,
they want to grow football.
It'll be 8, including
Yes,
Qatar, wouldn't
exactly.
it?
They want to grow football in
Yeah.
Asia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a huge market.
Because this is for 2026. Like,
Yeah.
as in,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's
well,
going to be
yeah.
the same format.
Yeah,
so,
true.
like Richard says, I think it's just for the growth in football in Asia. They
football,
want to see more
yeah.
teams participate.
Well, Japan's been
whether or not
knocking
we
on the
agree
door
or
for
not.
years.
Japan
They've
have
always
always
just been
been
knocking on the door.
Japan have been they were fantastic this World Cup as well. They're
Like, there
another
was
super team.
you know how I said Belgium that's like a second-tier team about to become big international? Japan's kind of knocking on the door from 3rd to 2nd.
Yeah.
They just need like a big... I think if they defeated Belgium, it would have changed everything.
Yeah. Blue Samurai, always been a pretty competitive World Cup team. Pretty proud nation, Japan.
Always a good rivalry with Australia.
Yeah. After that 2006 World Cup.
Yeah. All right, so I think the World Cup chat has run its course. We're back after this.
In 4 years' time.
Yes, we'll be talking the World Cup obviously in 4 years' time.
Already counting down the days.
Yeah, that's it.
How many days? is it?
Predictions for
How many
2022.
days until it comes home?
How
Let's
many
go.
days?
How many
Will
days?
it come home in 2022?
No.
When does the sun supernova?
All those
Well, the
questions
Earth
will
only has
be
about a
answered.
billion years left, so...
All those questions will be answered in 4 years. After this, we'll be back with some AFL, a more familiar sport, which we are keen to talk about. We're now going to get stuck into some AFL chat because it was a huge weekend in the AFL world, and it started off with an absolute blockbuster on Friday night between St Kilda and the Carlton Blues. St Kilda winning 16-20-116 to Carlton's 7-10-52. Leading goal kickers for the Saints was Membry and Nunes, each with 3, and then there were 7 individual goal kickers for the Blues. Best on for the Saints, Stephen Steele Billings. For the Blues, Cripps, Fisher, Murphy in front of a decent crowd at Eddie Etihad Stadium after ticket prices were reduced, 33,780. Look, bit of a snorefest this one, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, and it is in Tasmania as well. I don't think anyone was predicting.
Wrong game.
Tasmania.
Sorry.
Wow.
Moving on to the next one. Sorry, yes.
Carl's thinking it was the hotly anticipated Friday night clash
it was,
the media has been having a meltdown about for the last 8 weeks.
Should the AFL look to have a floating Friday night fixture?
I think Carlton should not play Friday night games. I know it sounds
Or is it that
difficult.
simple?
So
Or is it that
controversial.
simple?
Like maybe a team that finished third last season shouldn't get as more Friday night games than a team that lost in the prelim finals. GWS only played one Friday night game against Geelong in Geelong.
It's a bit of a debacle.
I know it's meant to be for the better teams, but it's not. It's for the teams that can draw the big crowd.
I think.
And Carlton can't draw a crowd.
You can't draw a crowd when you won one game all
No.
year.
Yeah.
And they only have 2 good players.
I think they should have a floating game. I think they
Oh,
should.
really?
Here we go. Look, ready. I think they should have. I think the floating Friday night game is a good idea, but never at the same time as a floating Thursday, because that would be absolute havoc. I think they're going to do one or the other, and have the floating Thursday as well. But I don't think that should be in the same round.
They should have floating Friday night fixtures, I think, after round 10.
Yeah.
And then, because that gives you a reasonable indicator of who is going to be the top teams.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, you can play them through that. But obviously, this match, St Kilda, clearly dominant. Carlton, you got the wooden spoon. Congratulations. That is locked in. And you know who a team who hasn't got it?
Who?
The Brisbane Lions, because we have won 3 in a row. I think it's the first time.
Unbelievable.
They have won 3 in a row. You did nothing.
We have. I did
What
everything.
did you do?
I did everything. Anyway, Brisbane won 15-8-98 to Hawthorns 9-11-65. Goal kickers for the Lions, Rayner and Hipwood each with 3. And then for the Hawks, it was O'Meara with 4 and Gunston with 2. Best on for the Lions, Dane Beams, Cam Rayner and Daniel Rich. And for the Hawks, Jago O'Meara, Mitchell and Sicily. In front of 12,557 in Tasmania.
Great win by the Lions. 2 wins in a row over the Hawks.
No, get going. It's all right. It's all right. I just...
Can you please turn off the French national anthem?
Sorry.
So yeah,
We've had
2
the
wins,
French
2 wins for the
last night.
season over the Hawks for the Lions.
Yeah,
got the
they're
wood over
sweet.
them.
We've got the broomsticks
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, in Tassie as well. It's no mean feat beating Hawthorn in Tasmania. And geez, they just look fantastic, the Lions, on Saturday afternoon. Great ball movement, really fun team to watch, actually.
They
Really
are,
exciting.
exactly.
They should get some Friday night games next year.
I know,
the
we
Brisbane
should.
Lions.
We should. But the thing is, though, we've been playing this footy for the majority of the season. Look, as a supporter, it was so frustrating watching the majority of the first half of the season, because we'd get so close, and yeah, we may get blown out in the last quarter, but the footy was there. I mean, the excitement was there, and I just had the feeling, and you knew that when these young kids had the taste of a win, they were going to go on with it. And now that they've won 3 in a row, facing Adelaide on Saturday night
That
at
game's
the
actually
Gabba.
interesting.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
You'd give him a red hot crack to
Do you
take
know
the
what's
points
amazing?
as well.
I don't think no one spoke about this, but the biggest comeback of all time, Josh Walker's hairline.
Oh, yeah.
That was gone a few weeks ago. And,
Jeez.
oh,
The other thing
full head of hair.
was
He
it-
came back with his form as well. 'Cause
Yeah,
he's
it
been
was,
playing some good footy.
You can't forget in this match as well, though, that Brisbane were down by 3 goals at the start of the third quarter. I think that says more about their form than their structure or their playing ability or their players coming through, because that has been what other teams have done to them traditionally this season. Now they're able to do it to another team at home. It's fantastic. That's the sign of a team that's on the improve.
And
If
I
they can
think
turn it around. No.
I'll let you
Did you
finish.
have something you wanted to say? No, go on. You're gone. I was
can I
finished. I was
please?
finished when you started talking. Go on.
Okay, cool. It's easy to forget that Cam Rayner was the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah.
He's
I
a
think,
superstar.
I think being in Brisbane, there's no pressure on him whatsoever. I think if you were new to AFL and then go pick who you think the number 1 draft pick is, I think they would choose Adam Chua from Fremantle. I think he's got the most media attention of anyone from this draft so far.
That's a good joke, Liam.
you-
It'd be Stephenson. For
I have not
Collingwood.
seen anything about Stephenson, even in the Herald Sun. It's not like the Melbourne media post anything positive about Fremantle. It's
I know.
absolute-
Harold Sun is a big
terrible.
fan of Stevenson. Sam Landsberg is a big fan of Jaden Stevenson. That's very
They,
right.
they froth Collingwood. They froth any Collingwood young player.
Yeah,
Anyway.
the other young buck who's really got a chance at Brisbane was Hugh McCluggage, who's playing
I
some
love
really
him.
great footy at the
He
moment.
should. He was touted as the number 1 pick. What was it, 2016
yeah.
draft? Yeah.
He's really
I
just
said he's a
progressed
future
so
Brownlow
nicely.
medalist. I said he looked like a future Brownlow medalist before he got drafted, so quite confident in my prediction there.
You heard it there first.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the next match, and a pretty solid victory by Melbourne over the Western Bulldogs, 18-11, 119 to 10-9, 69. The leading goal kickers from Melbourne being Hogan with 4, McDonald with 3, and Gablett with 2. And from the Bulldogs, Wallace with 3, Shash from 2, Shaki from with 2, and Johannesson with 2. And the best from Melbourne were Gawn, Brayshaw, and Oliver, obviously. And from the Bulldogs, McRae, Wallace, and Hunter. Yeah, that's signalling this maybe a return to form for Melbourne. Some would say they could have done this every other match in the year, and there are probably matches they should have won by this much against other teams. But it's still a good win. It's probably more of the Bulldogs' fall from grace.
Well, they weren't too bad.
Another third quarter fade out.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
That's back-to-back weeks where they faded in the last quarter. They were really close with Horton, obviously, the last week. But yeah, then they got pumped. But that's obviously going to be an issue for them moving forward. They have been playing some good footy, like Richard said. But look, Melbourne, it's a win that they needed. They now still sit in a 6th position. Obviously, they had lost 3 of their last 5. Now they got 2 on the trot. A much-needed win to try and get back into that top 4 because they were sitting in second place. What was it, about 5-6 weeks ago?
They won the premiership a few weeks ago, I swear.
Oh, they did, and then something called deja vu occurred.
They did at Melbourne.
They slipped. They did at Melbourne.
They did an absolute Melbourne, a pure Melbourne.
But yeah, it was a win they needed, and to their credit, they got it. So good job to Melbourne. But Andrew, your boys, Essendon, very scare against Gold Coast, but you still got the win.
Yes, yeah. I think the scare against Gold Coast would have been to lose. They've been, and there was a point there where it was seriously considered, looking like it was going to be the case. But yes.
I'll go.
Can you do it? Yeah.
So Essendon won 13-17, 95 to 6-15, 51. Best on for goal kickers for the Bombers, Bagley with 3, Guelphy and McKernan with 2. Then Holman was one of the only 2 multiple goal kickers for the Suns with 3, Young with 2. Best on for the Bombers, Hurley, Smith, Hooker. For the Suns, Holman, May and Martin in front of just over 13,000.
It's actually no bad crowd for Gold Coast.
No.
Yeah, just over 13,000.
Essendon does have the highest number of travelling fans though. They generally, I don't think Essendon's had a game that's had less than 10,000 people.
I think they travel the most
like
of any Victorian teams. Not like Victorian teams that travel.
No.
God.
No.
That's a good note to move on to the next match quickly.
That's all we're doing?
Yeah. Even as an Essendon supporter, that was. I don't want to say any more than that. That was good.
But anyway, in terms of teams not able to travel away from Melbourne, it is Richmond because they lost to the Giants.
Yes, Richmond ended up losing to GWS last year's prelim final rematch, losing 11-13, 79 to 10-17, 77. So very inaccurate Richmond there. The leading goal kickers for the game for GWS, Langdon with 3, Kelly with 2, Taranto with 2, and returning Toby Green with 2 goals. For the Tigers, Daniel Riola with 3, and Jack Revolt with 2 goals. And the best, you got Ward, Cornelia, Woodfield, Shield, Taranto, Langdon. So all top draft picks there for the Giants. And with Richmond, Martin, Lambert, Rioli, Grimes, Prestia, and Short. And Richmond did come up short in that game. They say, is there an issue with Richmond travelling? I say no. They've got Gold Coast. The next round of the game, let's face it, they're not going to lose that game.
Oh, you never know.
That's the only game out of Melbourne for the rest of the season.
Yeah, they can't travel away from home, though. You don't know.
But they're getting better. They lost to Port by 10, then lost to GWS by 2. So I've got a feeling they'll beat Gold Coast. I know it's hard to believe that Gold Coast might lose a game. But yeah.
It's annoying, isn't it, that they're going to finish top 2 and they're not going to have to travel come the final series, we presume.
And they've got 25 games in MCG this season? Probably like 30 games, I think. So I think all this talk about them being flat track bullies is kind of stupid because it doesn't matter. I don't think they care about this loss.
Also, just quickly, there was a lot made that this was a huge upset. I tipped GWS. I don't think this was a huge upset. Was it?
No.
Was it?
I tipped Richmond, but I could see GWS winning. Yeah. And I think GWS having Green back, getting Cameron back, Delidio back, and that back have a good chance of probably stirring a bit of an upset in the finals.
Yeah.
Particularly as GWS now have a window to the finals. I think they saw that and seized that while they could.
Yeah. They were in form.
Such an important win for the Giants. They're up into 7th now, and they have that draw as well, so they have a bit of a points differential against the other teams. Yeah, half a game against some of those other top 8 competing teams.
14,000 at Spotless Stadium, which they're slowly growing the club. 23,000 members, 14,000.
They have 23,000 members?
Yeah.
Where are they all?
What about Richmond? What about Richmond? 89,000 members. Wait till
Why
next-
didn't they travel?
Yeah,
Anyway,
well,
I
I
reckon there's about 10,000 Richmond supporters there.
The only thing one more thing I'd say about this GWS game quickly is that they were 5 goals up twice in the halfway through the first quarter, halfway through the second quarter, and then they only won by 2 points. So that's the only thing that is perhaps not as promising for GWS. But it was a good win. Yeah, a win's a win, and particularly for Brisbane.
Oh, we'll get to that a bit later as well. A win being a win.
Thanks, Liam. Moving on.
Yeah, so on Sunday afternoon, the early game on Sunday, West Coast versus Collingwood at the MCG. West Coast got away with it with a big second half, 15-12, 102 to Collingwood 9-13, 67. De Goey was the top scorer for the Pies with 4 goals, while Josh Thomas kicked 3. For West Coast, Josh Kennedy on return kicked 3, as well as Willie Rioli and Jack Darling kicking 3 as well on return.
And Lecrae with 2.
With 2,
return, yeah.
the Frenchman. For the best for Collingwood, Adams, De Goey and Pendlebury. For West Coast, McGovern, Gaff and Redden. It was a great performance by the Eagles after Nick Natanui went down with a potential ACL, I think is all the reports in that first half. But they really rallied in the second half and had a great win at the MCG.
People are now saying that because they haven't got Nick Natanui, they're not going to be able to win from now on, particularly with an ACL. But the fact they were able to win in that second half and such a concise win as well, I mean, it's a pretty decisive defeat against the second team. So
pretty encouraging performance.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to really suffer without him too much.
That was West Coast's first win over Collingwood at the MCG since 1995, mind you.
So none of us are born then. So lovely.
Yeah. That's huge for them. A huge monkey off their back. But look, West Coast, you felt like they needed to get a win over a top team here at the MCG, albeit Collingwood haven't been in the top 8 side. They are injury-riddled at the moment, but this is a win that West Coast needed. They obviously welcomed back their trio of forwards in Lecrae, Kennedy and Darling, and they combined for 8 goals, which was absolutely superb for the Eagles. So do you think they're back in form right now?
Well, a big win like that after the win against GWS last week, I'll say yes. I think they're in a bit of trouble without Nick Nat. In saying that, I think Nick Nat, he's turning 29 next year. He won't be back until halfway through 2019 if it is an ACL. It's going to be hard for him. I don't know how he's going to finish his career.
Just so disappointing for such a live wire talent and someone who's such a enigmatic figure in the game, such an enjoyable bloke to watch. It's disappointing to see him go down with what looks like another long-term injury.
I'm actually talking about Collingwood. I'm a big fan of Jordan De Goey. He reminds me of a certain player that used to play for Fremantle. 191, can play as a key forward as well as a midfielder. If only he had the big snoz, he remind me a bit of Matthew Pavlich there.
Wow, interesting comp.
No pressure on the young kid, but
Yeah.
No pressure on him whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I do see what your point though, and particularly the way he's held Collingwood together as elements of Pavlich about him.
He's the driving force for Collingwood.
Just a quick one as well with the MCG hoodoo off the back for the Eagles. The dimensions of Optus Stadium
are the same.
Being the same as the G, I think has certainly helped them. I mean, it didn't look a step out of place on Sunday. Yeah. So that could definitely help them come the finals.
They played Carlton there early in the year and they only beat them by
10 points.
Yeah, it wasn't too many, so that was still thinking the hoodoo was there, but
this is very encouraging. Because I think as well in 2015 was it when they made the grand final?
Against Hawthorn.
I'm stretching, but that was when they had their Weagles web, and it was a very defensive setup. Whereas nowadays they have very quick ball movement, really enjoy the big open spaces of the G and Optus Stadium. So I think they're in a lot better stead as far as performing in Melbourne when it comes to this year's final series.
Absolutely superb stuff from the Eagles.
Very disappointing for Collingwood. They needed to win that game. They've only defeated Melbourne as a team in the top 8. Got a really, really easy fixture, but this is why I've said it. I don't think they're a serious contender.
Collingwood, quickly, just before we move to the next match, Collingwood now, they have a very difficult task. They pretty much face all top 8 teams from now on, except for, I think it's Brisbane, when they play Etihad in a couple of weeks' time. That could still prove to be a difficult task, mind you. But I think Collingwood will drop out the top 4, unfortunately for them.
So just one more point on your one more point. It's interesting, that point about them playing well because of Optus's dimensions is really interesting because the one thing that everyone's saying about this grand final is that they're going to have to beat Richmond at the MCG, and now it's looking like West Coast could do that. And we mentioned before that Collingwood that they'd lost to Carlton at the MCG, but that was only in round 5. They'd only played 3 matches at Optus Stadium that year, so perhaps they just hadn't got used to it. Now they've played 17 matches across the year at Optus Stadium and MCG, so now with that in mind, I really do think they can be finals contenders more than before they played that match.
We'll get quickly through the last 2 games because, Richard, your boys, the Sydney Swans.
Sydney Swans, great win. Great victory for the Swans. It was a very tight game between them and North Melbourne. Pretty pleased to get the win. Alir kicking the winner. So in the end, it was Sydney 16-8, 104 to North Melbourne 15-8. 98. For the Swans, it was Ben Ronk, the man kicking 5 goals, the man, the myth, the legend. He's been huge this year. Buddy with 3. For North, Zeeble was huge with 5, and Ben Brown and Majak Dor both kicked 4 each. Great showing from the 2 key forwards there. For North, best on was Zeeble, Higgins and Ben Brown, and for Sydney, Ronk, Franklin and Heaney on return. Very pivotal part of the team, Isaac Heaney. Great win for the Swans. I was chuffed, obviously, as a supporter, and a very important win for our finals hopes. Actually pushed us up into the top 4 with Port Adelaide slipping.
Yes.
Yeah,
don't know if we can stay there, but at least the top 8's looking like a bit more of a certainty now than it was this time last week.
Sydney, a top 8 to certainty every year.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of chat after a few injuries, and we copped another one on the weekend with Josh Kennedy clutching at his back in the second term. But it's looking okay now as a Swans fan.
I think Sydney, they've always been a top four team this season.
Yeah.
Obviously, this win helps the case. They had lost their 2 previous games, so this was a much needed win for the Swannies. North Melbourne now, they sit in 9th position. They are down on percentage to the Geelong Cats, who do sit in 8th. So a disappointing loss from North Melbourne. But look, Sydney, I reckon they can finish as high as 3rd now, because you're going to see Collingwood most likely drop out of that top 4. You got them second ahead of the Eagles?
They're still my grand final, Sydney Richmond.
I still think they'll finish 3rd. Whether or not they make the grand final will be interesting. It's out of West Coast and Sydney for me to see who plays the Tigers at the G. But yeah, look, very important win for the Swannies, and it was a fantastic game here at Etihad. They always perform here. They always perform.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the 3rd match they've won this year at Etihad by quite a margin, so it's pretty good.
Also, a big thing, Buddy Franklin kicked goal 900. The 9th player in AFL history to kick 900 goals. So
will he get to 1,000?
Oh, definitely.
What a champion in an era as well where key forwards don't kick as many bags as they used to back in the day. Yeah. Very impressive effort from Buddy.
So to game of the year, to the worst game of the season, Fremantle defeated Port Adelaide 8-11-59 to 7-8-50. Not many multiple goals kicked to speak of. Brendan Cox at one point kicked the only 2 goals for Fremantle after kicking like 50 behinds in a row. And Wingard kicked 2 goals for the Power. For the best, it was Mundy, Neil, Ryan, Langdon, Cox and Darcy for the Power. Wine, Polak, Power Pepper, Wingard and Westhoff. Injuries for Port Adelaide, with Ryder and Gray both getting injured, and Sean Darcy going off in the last quarter for Fremantle. 33,190 at Optus Stadium.
31,000 disappointed fans, I would imagine.
Yeah.
With the spectacle that was on display on Sunday night.
What an appalling match.
Losing the last 2 games by over 100 points each.
That's a fair point.
A win's a win against a team, and the only team that should be disappointing about this is Port Adelaide.
Yeah, very true. And they should be very disappointed.
When you're a team like Freo and you're not playing the top, you're not making finals, a win's a win no matter who you play. Port could have jumped into the top 4. You know, I did a ladder predictor last week, and they had such an easy run home. I had them second, and yeah, they absolutely stuffed it.
Especially the wins are going to mean so much come the end of the season. It's so tight, so congested from 10th through to 2nd, really.
Yeah.
I mean, to slip up in a game like this was just really disappointing for them.
It's getting to the point now where a team just can't have an upset loss like that if they're going to be a top 4 contender like Port Adelaide are.
Speaking of how congested it is, we'll quickly go through the ladder. So Richmond and West Coast, they both sit on top of the table, equal on points with 48. Then you got Collingwood, Sydney and Port Adelaide in 3rd, 4th, 5th respectively, each on 44 points. You got Melbourne on 40 points in 6th, and then you got GWS with 38 in 7th. Geelong equal on points with both North and Hawthorn, but have a superior percentage, so they hold the current 8th place position. But unfortunately, we've got to quickly move on because we are running a little bit short on time. We'll get straight into our wrap-up because there was another huge sporting event which took place overnight, and it was the Wimbledon men's final, which saw Novak Djokovic win his 13th Grand Slam title. He's back, officially back, Djokovic. He was the 12th seed in Wimbledon, but nevertheless, he was able to beat Kevin Anderson 6-2, 6-2, 7-3. It was 7-6, sorry. It was 7-3 in that tiebreaker. Massive win for Djokovic.
Got Andy Murray winning the US Open, with Federer winning the Aussie Open, Nadal winning the French Open, Djokovic winning the Wimbledon, and so Andy Murray's going to win.
The big 4 back. They're back. It's fantastic. Kevin Anderson, unfortunately, his, I guess, record-breaking run has come to an end. He beat John Isner in an absolute marathon semi-final. What was it
26-24, I think.
26-24. And John Isner is no stranger to when it comes to long matches, especially at Wimbledon, because he beat Nicholas Mahut, was it 3 years ago? Similar scoreline.
68-66,
Yeah.
I think.
Not a similar scoreline.
Yeah,
Even
a bit
further.
bigger.
I remember it was long.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember
I think
the
they
score.
played over 2 days, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was a marathon. But anyway, it was always going to catch up for him.
Yeah, and for Kevin Anderson as well, the previous game beat versus
Mm.
Fed went to 5 sets. I think it was 13-11 or 11-9 in the final set. And the game before that as well went to 5, so he would have been absolutely spent.
Yeah.
He would have been hoping they changed the time of the final to suit the World Cup, pushed it back a day. But unfortunately, couldn't get it done against Djokovic.
Can you imagine if England had actually made the final, and obviously they would have been played at the same time as the men's final, what would have happened?
They would not have cared about Wimbledon.
Do you reckon there would have been a
English
I
person
would have
there.
rather to win the French Open than Wimbledon, probably.
Rod Laver would have been there.
Yeah.
And moving on to the women's singles as well, a bit of an upset. Kerber defeating Williams, also in straight set 6-3, 6-3. So
remarkable from Williams to
easy.
come back from pregnancy. I think 10 months
Yeah,
since
only
she
10
was.
months,
So
yeah.
absolutely fantastic from her to make the final. So
Kerber has a pretty good record over Serena at the moment.
Yeah, she does. And
beat her in the Aussie Open a couple of years ago. Yeah, she's a very, very handy player on the women's tour.
All right, we'll get through some other sports. So some NRL action was also taking place on the weekend. Just quickly, the Melbourne Storm were able to defeat our arch nemesis, our arch rivals in the Manly Sea Eagles. Yes, Liam, by a single point, 14-13. Our other Melbourne team in the other rugby competition, which is the Super Rugby, unfortunately, we went down to the Highlanders over there in New Zealand. We lost 43-37. Liam, you got a bit of a Tour de France update, because that's also happening at the moment.
At the moment, Greg Van, I can't pronounce his last name.
Dyke? I don't know.
This is Avameet, something like that. He's currently leading at stage 9 of the tour.
we do have some really, really new breaking news, though, on the Australian interest in the Tour de France. Richie Porte has just 45 minutes ago abandoned the race.
Oh, no.
He broke his collarbone.
Get up,
from
mate.
Alistair
Come on.
Roubaix.
Walk it off.
That only happened, 46 minutes ago. So,
Yeah, didn't race last night either,
No.
Richie.
It's disappointing.
Very disappointing.
Yeah. I don't think there's any chance that Australia can win the Tour de France now. So,
Richie was our best, wasn't he?
yeah.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up the first episode of Season 3, the Monday edition of the Sports Essence. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Likewise.
Absolutely.
Liam, you'll be on the Wednesday show, not this week, but
Maybe not even next week.
as a regular. James will be joining us next Monday on the regular team. But anyway, I will see you two. I'm
Yes.
pointing to Andrew and Richard because, of course, it's on radio and no one can see me.
I think that
trust
everyone who's listening is in this room.
I think they'd figure
There is
after
no
my
doubt.
explanation there. Anyway, until next, our next edition of the Sports Desk, of course, is on 9 to 10 a.m. Andrew, you got a great plug on our socials as always.
Yes, don't forget to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/the Sports Desk, and also on Twitter at the Sports Desk, and also you can find all our previous episodes and the exclusive Sunday podcast edition on Omni and iTunes. So
Make
get
sure
around
you
there.
follow us on MySpace as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Sports
Ask
Desk.
Jeeves. If you Google us in Bing, yahoo.com. Leave us a
Super Sports
leave us
Desk
a review on
89.
Menulog. Yes.
Anyway, until Wednesday, hope you enjoyed listening to the show.